Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host. We're broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse. It's just terrible here. The weather's awesome, but the politics really, really suck. So talking about that today, joining me, as always, Meg and Jesse. How you doing there, buddy?
Yep, doing good. And yeah, I mean, the government just keeps getting more and more corrupt, more and more sold out. So we've got to stand up and fight against it.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not a doomsday kind of guy, and though a lot of people would say, yeah, you are, Jake. But, you know, I'm not usually the guy that goes, oh, this is the most important election of our time, and oh, we're going to lose America, all that kind of stuff. I literally think at this point we might lose America, okay?
Yeah,
You know?
I think so too. You know, we're in that moment where it feels like, you know, they always say the most important election ever will. Really feels like at this time, and it really feels like it's all on the line when we see the globalists, the World Economic Forum, and everything else that's going on in this crazy world, the indictments against Trump. It feels like they're after the American citizen.
Yeah, and I'm going to dive right into that, but I have to let people know running the dials as usual is Dawson. We call him Deep State Dawson. He's probably cheering it on because the deep state then accumulates more power when it falls, right? That's how it works.
That's exactly how it works, Jake. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing right now.
There you go. You play video games at night? Sure. Yeah. Messaging back to CIA headquarters. That's what he's doing. I want you to go to Rumble. If you're not on Rumble, actually, YouTube is back. So thank you, YouTube, for giving us the ability to broadcast on your system again because we're off suspension. But anyhow, Rumble, if you're at Rumble, you can go to the Rumble chats. Please, we will try to read as many comments as possible. We do not have the lovely Bridget in here today, and we don't have straight-laced William, so it's harder for me to read it. But if you do a Rumble rant, so you click on Rumble rant, you automatically, it interrupts our program. We got to go to it, and I see the big yellow. Okay, so I will definitely not miss a Rumble rant. I will likely miss a lot of other comments. I do see Joel Marzinski, which is great. Patriot says, good afternoon, everyone. Tucker says, don't grovel to poop tube, haha. And then Beth Moy says, hello, everyone. Okay, now no promises that I'll read everyone's comments, so please hit the Rumble rant if you're watching live, and I will definitely see that. And also, one other favor, please hit like. Whatever you're watching on, if it's on Facebook, even if you're watching after the fact, hit like. That tells all those algorithms out there that this is good material, and we got to get this out there. Now, I think you're going to hear a lot of things on this show that you're not going to hear from a lot of other places. One of those things, and we're going to get into that in probably about 20 minutes, is the basically taking down the talking points of the Republican establishment on why this whole Speaker McCarthy removal was a bad thing. And we got like probably the top 6, top 5. And then I got one that's maybe not a top one, but it's hilarious. I got to take it down. So, because people have emailed me, or you see on social media or stuff like that, people that have, it's almost as if they're just getting the Newt Gingrich, the Fox News talking points, you know, and it's like, come on, think for yourself here. There's a reason this is really good, okay?
And it's funny for, you know, regular common citizens to be getting their panties in a knot over something like this. You know, it's like, what has Kevin McCarthy ever done for you?
I know.
You know, Kevin McCarthy, is he still better than the Newt Gingriches and the John Boehners of the world? Sure, but that doesn't mean that he's good. You know, McCarthy, he didn't live up to his end of the promise. He didn't do the single subject bills. He was, you know, putting bills on the floor without 72 hours to review it. It was only a matter of time before someone stood up to him. And, you know, it's awesome that Matt Gaetz did, and especially for the principled reasons.
He broke his promise. That's what you do. If you break your promise, you have to pay for it. I don't get it. Like, oh, we shouldn't do this. It's like, he didn't live up to his promise.
Right.
So that should just be forgiven. Well, then why? How do you plan on fixing politics? That's the question. Patriot Carla Nelson, hello. I love you. Thank you for tuning in. Brad Ganser, let's roll. Gingrich was off on his take. There are a lot of people that are off on this take. Honest to God.
Almost everyone on Fox News is. You know, almost every single person on Fox News was speaking the McCarthy talking points all the way leading up to the vote, even after the vote. And, it's just ridiculous. They got all kinds of excuses, and then, you know, also all kinds of complaints now. But we're in a new position. We're going to have a new speaker, and Fox News and these rhinos are just going to have to deal with that.
Yes. Okay, now, let's get into a much more heavy subject, okay? The speaker battle, okay? Like literally, Pete Stauber goes, this is a sad day for America. Shut the hell up. It's not a sad day for America.
Yeah.
No one cares outside of the political insiders, right? It's honestly the Washington Insiders. That's a sad day. It's not a sad day for America. What is going to be a sad day for America is when Congress continues screwing us over, and that's really what the whole thing was about. Was we didn't get appropriation bills, we didn't cut government spending, we did nothing to solve the deficits and the enormous, tremendous $33 trillion debt. We've talked about this on the show, and we're going to talk about it a lot on the show. Okay. All right, so we had this big show prepared on Tuesday, and then the vote happened live. We had to go to the live thing. It ended up going 3 hours. So I think I had briefly brought this up, but let's go ahead and pull this up. This is a Federal Reserve research paper. Now, we're no fans of the Federal Reserve here, okay? I think the Fed needs to end. Maybe the one function of the Federal Reserve that should continue on is research, okay? Because there's a lot of economists work there. They could do some research, all right? But the Fed creates our money. Not good. Definitely not good. Connected to Washington, D.C. But this is the paper called Assessing the Costs of Rolling Over Government Debt. I did this research by myself in like 2010 when I was like, that's what got me back into politics. I was so worried about the ballooning debt and what happens when interest rates go up. And then lo and behold, Jesse, interest rates stayed artificially low for over a decade.
Right.
I mean, I still remember the Fed funds rate, the target rate was 0 to 25 basis points. It's basically nothing. It's zero, right? So that's why we got to this point where it was allowable to continue accumulating this debt. We still saw the interest payments go up, but it wasn't that unsustainable, all right? But I was looking at historic averages, and I looked at what happened in 1981 when the short-term treasury bills were at like 16, 17%. And it's like, oh, the whole thing would be up. We couldn't do it. And so the Fed is forced to increase interest rates to try to fight the inflation that was caused by, guess what? Congress. Okay, so here we go. This paper, and you should check this out. You could just probably Google Assessing the Cost of Rolling Over Government Debt. Will you do me a favor, Dawson? Scroll down here. Keep going. Go back up a little bit. Okay, right here in this first paragraph after that chart. That chart is showing how the debt is structured. There's non-marketable debt. There's intragovernmental debt. Eventually, what we really care about is that bottom part. It's called fixed rate. There are three types. There's bills. So you see that on the bottom right? There you go. Perfect. Treasury bills, which are maturities under a year. Okay, short-term papers, they call it in the federal or financial services industry. So 12% of the debt is in that. You got treasury notes, and that's terms from 1 to 10 years. Okay, and then you got treasury bonds, and that's about 13%. And there's two types of treasury bonds. There's a 20-year and a 30-year bond. Now, you guys know there's 20-year mortgages, 30-year mortgages. A lot of the interest rates are based off of the U.S. government treasury. Okay. Because the treasury is the one kind of investment that you can, as a financial advisor, guarantee a return on because it's backed by the federal government. So if the treasury bond at 30 years is 5%, a mortgage rate is going to be a little higher than that because a mortgage is more risky than the treasury bond. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm tracking what you're saying.
All right, so this is right now, and the bonds are the treasury. Actually, the best deal right now is a treasury bill at like what, 1 month. It's like 5%. I mean, the yield is insane. But you usually should have a higher rate of return or higher interest rate for tying up your money longer. I don't know what kind of nutcase would buy a 30-year bond right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people I know have definitely put their money into treasury bonds because it's a way to increase the value of your dollar more than you would just having it in a savings account or something with a bank. But yeah, I mean, especially when we're looking at the lack of stability of the dollar right now, I can't imagine anybody who would want a 30-year bond based on the dollar that we have right now. It seems like it's a big scam waiting to fall.
Just for those financial people out there, there is a rationale. You think that interest rates are going to go back down, so you buy a 30-year bond and then you plan on selling it because there is a market for bonds, right?
Yeah.
You sell them at premium, you sell them at discount. So you don't have to hold on to it. But what kind of nutcase would hold on to a bond for 30 years that's paying clearly something that's going to be
They got to be an optimist. They got to be an optimist.
Yeah,
if
I
they're
guess
doing something
so.
like that.
But is it optimism? Okay, so the reason I show you this, and I don't want to get into the whole deal of it, but if you saw that the treasury bills are 12%, notes are 44%, and bonds are 13%, that means a substantial amount of our U.S. debt, and in this case, is $21.4 trillion. So of the $33 trillion, $21.4 trillion is in fixed rate marketable bond or investments that mature and then come due. So if you go back to this chart real quick, you'll see in the color coding, that is color coded based on when things mature. So you'll see on the far left in 2023, you got this big category. It's blue. And that's 1 year or less maturities. And then that blue disappears in the next category, 2024, because obviously those bonds haven't been issued yet. So you see how all that blue stacks higher than the bonds that mature in 2024? That means if interest rates go up by another 3%, right, by next year, that whole blue category then gets issued in new bonds, new bills, treasury bills, okay, at a higher rate. And that means that's more interest payments we have to make. Do you see the problem here? I hope this makes sense because I try not to get too technical. I love this shit, okay? When I did this study back in 10 years ago, you can take off the chart here, Dawson. I did them in like pie charts. I thought it was a little easier to see. You could see basically the consumption of the interest payments on the overall amount of spending. But if we look at this right now, interest payments on our debt currently are $700 billion, okay? It's almost as much as defense spending, which, by the way, if you guys don't know this, we spend more in defense than the next 23 countries combined. That's how much we spend on defense. And apparently we can't keep track of all our damn jets. You know, that was a story that happened right when I was off the grid. You know, I'm elk hunting, and I like get back to town and I turn on the phone, and apparently we lost a jet. Like I was like, what is going on here? Okay, so here's the point I'm trying to make without getting too much in the weeds. We don't have a Congress willing to fix the problems. Okay? You got Social Security, which is quasi-bankrupt, Medicare, which is completely bankrupt, Medicaid, and defense spending that's outrageous, and we want to fund a de facto war against Russia. And at the same point, we have ballooning interest rate payments, and the more interest rates go up, the higher that consumes our debt. And on top of all that, we're already overspending by $2 trillion. So that alone means that there's going to be higher interest payments. Do you see the problem here? This is not sustainable. I can't tell you what the pricking point is going to be, what's the interest rate, what's the amount of total debt, but there's a pricking point because eventually what happens is this just doesn't work. You can only rack up so much credit card debt before you no longer can pay your mortgage and buy food and groceries. And we're basically at that point right now because the federal government can continue borrowing money because they print it and they sell it to the Federal Reserve. And then we wonder, why are grocery bills so expensive right now?
Right.
So we have been sold this bag of goods. I'm foaming at out there. This bag of goods from our Congress people. Okay. Did you see how I made that gender neutral? Congress people. You know, they didn't just go with the masculine congressmen.
Yeah.
We've been sold out by these guys. They've been telling us these sweet, delicate little things, the Kevin McCarthy's of the world. They've been telling us this stuff, and no one's willing to just stand up. Until now, it seems like Matt Gaetz, if we take him for his word, this is a real problem. We got to start fixing it. But we literally can't continue the status quo. Okay? So pull up this graphic. I wanted to talk about in order for a country to survive, okay, for America to survive, you got three pillars. You basically got to have a stable political system, a stable economic system, and a stable security state, okay? Now, when was the last time our country fell? It was basically the Civil War, 1850s, all right? And that was obviously, and a lot of these things kind of affect the other, right? You have a attack by, well, actually, in this case of Civil War, internally, right? And it destabilizes the economy and it destabilizes the political system. We are seeing right now some of the biggest threats to all three of those things, and they aren't necessarily tied together, right? So I just kind of alluded to you how the economic system is really threatened tremendously. And if I can, just a second, I don't want to spend much time on this. Okay? I think we all understand right now World War III is a reality. We are literally dealing with Russia, which is a superpower. Well, kind of a superpower. They're a superpower because they got nuclear weapons.
Right. And the UK, Britain is going to be sending troops on the ground in Ukraine to, train the soldiers there. So if that's going on right now, we know it's only a matter of time before US troops are sent in there. Joe Biden obviously would wait until after the election to do something like that. And, a lot of young people are just waking up and saying, I'm not going to war for Ukraine.
Right.
I'm not willing to die for that. And so I think a lot of people are realizing what you're saying. And you're right. It is, one of the most basic pillars of government, one of the most basic things as a society, as a nation, as a country. We cannot have our security state being under threat, and we can't be provoking other countries to try to start World War III. Especially when we're looking at the Ukrainian Nazis that we're funding. Why are we out there benefiting them? We need to strike a peace deal, and that's the last thing that a lot of these rhinos and Joe Biden ever want to do.
So, obviously, if we have a destabilized political system and economic system, and you already see the tensions, the war drums right now for World War III, makes us much more vulnerable to that, right? So I'm gonna partition that part of it, but I think when you lose those other two pillars, we're kind of doomed in that category. By the way, security also means we can't close our damn border. We just learned, I see Liberty Local had mentioned that the Biden administration apparently is funding the wall now. Like, it's so outrageous right now, the amount of fentanyl that's coming across that, killing Americans. So clearly we have a security issue. And in the streets, my God, Philadelphia, what's going on there right now? Chicago's still terrible.
Yep,
New York, yeah, it's awful.
And as all of these prosecutors are choosing to go after Trump, it's all in the Atlanta. Look at the crime going on in New York City and Atlanta and all these other places, Washington D.C. But what are they doing? They're keeping all their attention focused on Trump. It just goes to show that they're not serious about trying to stop this crime, and they have no intention of keeping the streets safe. And, they're making a mockery of the entire justice system.
Yeah, so I'm bad at reading these comments here. Brad Ganser, Clinton financed the long-term debt with short-term T-bills and used an accounting trick to lower the deficit. But you know what? What's interesting is you can't really use too many tricks here. Because, like, the rationale is, well, why don't we just put all of our debt in long-term treasury bonds, right? Well, that distorts the whole market, right? And right now we already see inverted yield curve, meaning there's higher interest rates in short-term debt instruments. That's rare. That's not supposed to happen. It certainly doesn't happen this long. So if they just flood the long-term bond market, it distorts the whole market. People are abandoning the short-term treasury bills, debt instruments, we'll call it. All right, so that's enough on the economic system. I hope you guys understand that, and maybe I could, I don't want to lay on too thick, but maybe I'll try to just over time, compound this. But
and you're right that it's coming from all different areas. The targets are coming from all different places, especially with the economic pillar that we were talking about too. It's not just the fact that our dollar is becoming worthless and the economy's crashing, the inflation and everything, but it's also this diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff. So we got the globalists coming after people, trying to force these businesses to adhere to these crazy leftist globalist ideas. And, so as far as the economy and business and financial states go right now in our country, we're in a tough spot with people coming at us from all directions.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, so and I didn't even mention like how BRIC is like BRIC nations banning the dollar.
Right.
It's not going to be the reserve currency of the world. There's some real freaking problems with the economy. Okay, before we go into the political, because Jesse's going to lead a lot of this discussion because he put together a lot of notes about what's going on with Trump. I remember in a college course I had, I can't remember what the course was, but I remember my buddy Andy and I were in this class. We always talked. We were like the two conservatives. It was fun. I had a lot of fun in college. I was very much like what I am right now in college. I just terrorized the leftist professors. It was great. And I look at college now and I go, I can't believe what it's become, because 20 years ago it was already bad. Now look at it. I wouldn't. They'd probably shoot me. Would they shoot me? What would they do? They don't have guns. Maybe they do have guns. They do have guns, right? Sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, who knows?
So,
But yeah, you'd have to lay a little lower nowadays.
but I
because
won't lay
it's
low.
Crazy.
I can't.
Yeah.
Too much to lose here. Like
Right.
the damn country.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this class we had, and it was when is America gonna fail, or when is it gonna be like over?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we all had this, and people had like guesses why it was. And literally, you know what I said? Because I'm pro-America. You know, this is like right around 9/11, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's never gonna fail. We're the best country on the planet, and we are. I love America to death. Okay, now I'm optimistic long term, right? I think I've talked about this on the show. You know, China's definitely making a bid for the superpower of the world, but they got a real demographic problem. There's not a lot of Chinese to replace the current generations. Although we do kind of have that problem here in America too with replacement, but it's not as bad as them. But here's the thing: the professor asks, "When is it?" And I literally say, me and Andy, I think we're in the same group. We're like, America's never going to fail. We're going to be the one that survives.
Yeah.
And I think of that naive little college student that said something stupid like that. Of course we're going to fail. Every empire, every country, eventually it fails. Now, what does failure mean?
It's our job to stop it. It's our job to try to fight that. But you're right that, inevitably almost every country, every country ever has failed.
Correct,
fallen.
yes.
Every empire. And but
yeah,
I mean,
what does
obviously
that mean?
As patriots and Americans, it's our job to,
Yes.
try to keep this thing afloat, and then also just try to keep the principles of our country intact.
Or in the rebound, okay, because the Soviet Union collapsed, it failed, but it's not like Russia doesn't exist today.
Right.
So when whatever is recreated, we're there and we go back to those constitutional principles, right? And that's where I play the long game. But I think at this point, when you look, and I come out of the woods or come out of the mountains last weekend, and I see Donald Trump. I don't know how I wasn't even tracking this one. I mean, was this just a shock to everyone that all of a sudden now he's got this New York case? Like, we have so many times where he's in court. It's like, there's a summary judgment by a judge in New York that says the Trump organization's committed fraud and needs to be dissolved. And I was like, what is going on here? And so obviously that's been the leading headline of the week. And when you look at this, you're like, not only do they want to throw this guy in jail and they probably want to shoot him, they want to like destroy him financially. They can't. So we have such a massive election interference going on. And, this has been poll tested. People have been asked, do you believe what's going on with Trump is political? When answered yes in the affirmative by a majority of people, Democrats are still fine doing it. So it's almost as if you see that this interference is happening. It's wrong. Like, you look at this case, and we'll go through it. It seems so wrong, and yet too many people are fine. So that last pillar, that political pillar, really, almost in my estimation, is the first one to go at this point. And it didn't seem like this. It's always the most important election of our lifetime. This one literally is. Like, if we allow this to work, it's my argument for voting for Trump in 2020 when they buried the Hunter Biden story, which was election interference. 50 intelligence officials saying that's Russian disinformation. The FBI going to social media saying you got to take that down. That was the deep state interfering in our election. That probably would have thrown the election to Donald Trump, right? So they interfere in that election. They're doing it so much worse in this election. So what do we got here? Jesse, we got... Well, should we start with Mar-a-Lago value? Does everyone know this at this point, the Mar-a-Lago value?
Yeah, maybe. And so basically just to describe that, everyone has been talking about it, how the value of Mar-a-Lago, how they set it at $18 million. I mean, what a joke. For them to be claiming that Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million, if it was worth $18 million, there'd be 1 million buyers lined up ready to buy that thing because that would be the biggest steal of a lifetime.
And you know what? That means there's... So a lot of people bidding up the price, right? You're right. If there's $18 million and 1 million buyers, then the price isn't $18 million, right? It means it's way higher because they're going to bid up the price. That's how markets work. I don't think they understand that over in New York courts.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what it would actually be worth. Trump says 50 to 100 times as much. Maybe it is worth 18 billion or
1.5, I think is what he said.
Yeah, right. And but the thing is, for them to be making these arguments, and it's so obvious that Letitia James And this judge, Mekrin, or I'll think of his name again, but he, both these people are never Trumpers. They have said it since the beginning that they're always after Trump. They don't like him. They think he's a bad guy. Letitia James, without evidence, without anything, she was, on video all these times throughout the years saying, we're going to get Trump. We're going to arrest him. We're going to lock him up. For what? I guess it doesn't matter because they can accuse him of anything. And if you got liberals in charge, they'll go along with it. They have no sense for truth or justice or trying to make sure that the justice system doesn't become entirely politicized, because what the Democrats don't realize, if they think that they can continue this, if the shoe was on the other foot, they would be losing their minds. They would be going crazy right now if the shoe was on the other foot. If a Republican judge was trying to throw a Democrat politician in prison for BS, I think that we're principled enough to say that that would be wrong because we don't want to see the weaponization of government. But, these Democrats don't care. They would, they're inconsistent, they're hypocritical, and, they're willing to do and say just about anything in order to try to take away Trump's money. They want to take $250 million from him. This is day 4 of the trial right now. I'm not sure if the proceedings are still ongoing today or not. What I checked on maybe an hour ago was all of them leaving the courtroom, so they may be done for the day. I'm not sure. But, they're trying to take $250 million, setting the date in March 25th for the trial date. So they're doing this all in the middle of an election, all in the middle of the primary election.
Wait. What trial date? What do you mean by that?
So March 25th is what I read is going to be the decision date for this case.
Oh, okay. I thought there wasn't a trial, though.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the thing. There's not a jury or anything like that. So not a jury trial, but the judge is,
So he's going to make a decision. He's just
right.
marked the day that he's making that decision.
And that's still to be determined, but March 25th is the day set for right now.
Interesting.
So it could still be subject to change, but March 25th is the day that they're pushing. And, that's right in the middle of, Super Tuesday's right in that area and all kinds of other things. So they're particularly planning all of this to try to bury Trump and, keep him busy during all of this. But it's only helping his poll numbers, especially in this primary, because all he's got is DeSanctimonious, Bird Brain Nikki Haley, Chris Krispy Kreme. All these people are just like, it's one joke after another, and nobody is really going to be able to take him on one-on-one. In a one-on-one, Trump beats all of them. So with the situation we're in right now, I think the people need to get behind Trump, and especially when we're seeing with all these court cases and things going on, it's pretty nuts. But you know what? Let's go ahead and go into one of these links here on...
What is that? What am I hearing?
I'm not sure. I've been hearing that too.
I'm 99% sure that's Dale texting me with an app on our TriCaster.
There's an app on our TriCaster?
Yeah, when I was trying to get phones working, or the call-in line working, I texted him, yes, this is working, please don't text, and he texted back, okay.
Gotcha. K-Wall says, ask T-Wall for the other half. K-Wall did a $10 Rumble run. Well, thank you, K-Wall. Appreciate that very much. I always feel like, if I could be critical of K-Wall, which obviously we love all the Rumble rants, you never ask for a rant of any sort. You make it too easy for us, you know? I appreciate it. And T-Wall's usually very dependable as well, but fire at us. Tell us something. Give us your favorite color. I don't know. What do you like to do on Friday nights? What's your favorite cocktail?
Theory.
Give us a conspiracy theory. Damn it. You paid for it.
Yep, that's right.
By the way, honest to God, I mean this so much. You guys make the show worth it. Like, I have no idea where the show's going to go, okay? We retain an audience. The live audience is what I love doing it. You don't have this, you don't feel anything from the people after the fact until they email you or text you or come up to you at the state fair and say, I'll watch your show. But the live audience, we get to react with you. It's so much fun. So if you're watching this after the fact, if you can free up your time at 1 o'clock, it's so much fun. We try to get to your comments. William Beck basically is supposed to be shaping the young minds at schools right now, is not. He says, is this case where the judge is smiling at the camera, totally fair trial? That is a true story. Did you see that?
Yep. Yep, we're going to play that video, too. I got that saved
William's
in here
not even here, and he's stealing your thunder.
Yep.
You're always doing this to him, William. Apparently, we couldn't hear you, Dawson, they said, so you must not have been talking to your mic. Carla Nelson makes a great point. This is the Patriot, Carla Nelson, by the way. The bank was paid back, and no citizen has filed a suit, government versus Trump. It's the greatest point. Like, who's
and
the
like
victim
you were
here?
saying, who's the victim?
Rodeo 55, sorry I am late. We noticed, Rodeo, but now we can continue on. Let's go.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so let's go ahead and go on to line 10 there, Dawson, and look at that article, because this is proof that this judge is a Democratic donor who has spent thousands of dollars helping out New York Democrats, and it just proves that this guy is a politically motivated person who doesn't like Donald Trump. So go ahead and scroll down there a little bit. Judge Arthur Engoron, who attracted ire on Monday after he appeared to pose for cameras during the trial, has contributed exclusively to Democrats over the past 25 years, most of them directly to his local Democratic Party committees. New York's campaign finance database shows Engoron has contributed over $5,000 to candidates and committees, including most recently in 2018 to Manhattan Democrats. So what this shows is, like I said, he's a Democratic donor. It's 100%. The proof is all laid out there. And for him to be a judge, a sitting judge, usually a judge is supposed to be someone who is nonpartisan. They're supposed to keep their head above the water as far as politics goes. They're supposed to try to keep their opinions limited, and you're just supposed to view things from an independent scope. You're not supposed to be a political person. When this person is donating, $5,000 to Democrats all across the state of New York, it goes to show that he's a Democrat judge. Who's he doing the bidding and the interest for? Letitia James, the New York Democrats, and the deep state. That's exactly who he's working for.
And that's a lot of money. By the way, also speaking of money, $10 from T-Wall for Life saying the better half. See, I love it. Our fan base is so great.
Yep.
Because K-Wall says, ask T-Wall for the other half, and she says the better half.
Mm-hmm.
Which I believe is probably true. Can we fact check that? William, will you fact check that for us? Is T-Wall the better half?
Yeah.
William wrote back yes. Okay, so there we go. It's fact checked.
Uh-huh.
No, that's a great point. $5,000, a ton of money. And he's smiling. I mean, he's smiling at the camera. This is my big day. Look at this. Get a picture of me.
Right, and it's a conflict of interest because, what if one of those people who he donated to would have appeared in front of his court? Would he have recused himself? I doubt it. It doesn't seem like that kind of guy. This guy is totally sold out. So it definitely appears that, he's never donated to a Republican either. Never donated to anyone outside of the Democratic Party. So what does that tell us? It tells us he's a Democrat. That's why he was chosen for this case. They would have never put anybody on there who was going to have a clear mind and view this thing fairly. Because any impartial witness to this entire thing understands that it's political. That's what the American people understand. They see it's political. They see they just want to destroy Trump, take away his money, take away his businesses, take away his property. And it's a joke. But luckily, all of this I think is going to be resolved. I think that this judge might end up making a bad ruling, but a lot of this can be resolved through the appellate courts. Trump is already appealing some of the rulings within this case, so that's important. And we can also go on to the next line there, Dawson, on line 11.
Why is that a 1? I'm so happy to finally be able to watch the show live again. I'm glad you could, because it's much more fun to have you guys live. I love it. It's great. It's like we have a conversation. And by the way, we'd love to have our fans on the show. Brad Ganser has been in studio, so if you guys want to be part of the show, speaking of the devil, Brad Ganser, $50 Rumble rant. If you are as shocked as I am about how conservatives still buy into this Trump witch hunt, rant away. Still buy into. So what? I don't understand what you're saying. So you're saying like the people, like maybe Fox News typical viewer that gets duped into that it's a legitimate witch hunt? Is that what he's saying?
I think what Brad is saying there is that, there's definitely a lot of people who are buying into it and saying that, how can Trump be the nominee with all of these, criminal indictments against him? Yeah. He can't be trusted. Obviously they wouldn't be doing this kind of stuff unless he was guilty. But, I agree with Brad there that, I'm seeing some conservatives and especially some of the DeSantis crew and whatnot who like to lean into these types of things to try to argue in favor of moving on from Trump. But, as we see it, and as most people see it, when they do these phony indictments, when they do these witch hunts against Trump, it forces people to double down, and it actually reinforces his support and grows the base.
Brad says, yes, I'm angry that so many of our friends still buy into this shit. And I don't know what friends you have. I mean, go to a different cigar club. My God.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was ready to move on from Trump. I came into this thinking maybe DeSantis or someone else. Who's the future of the party? It definitely wasn't Birdface, or who's it? Birdface?
Birdbrain.
Birdbrain, Nikki
Yeah.
Haley. It wasn't her, but I wanted someone new. I'm not a big just Trump guy here, but it's this shit that I see so clearly. This election interference going after a guy, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this guy gonna do? I kind of want to see it because they fear him. They don't want him. And if you look at Donald Trump, who was a Democrat, right? Donald Trump was not a Republican. He was probably a moderate Democrat. He hung with the Clintons, right? If the Democrats just embraced him, they might have got a moderate person who would have agreed and probably helped them with their base of the union support. And instead, they turn him and make him because they really just want to have the devil that they're working against. And plus, he called out all their friends in the media, so I guess that might have been the big tipping point. And so they made him the enemy, and then they do this against him. And it's like, now I look at Trump, and I'm like, this guy might be the guy that you have to back because, my God, what's he going to do? He's got to go on a revenge tour if he gets back in the White House. All right, sorry, let's go to the next thing here.
Yeah, and so this is a quote from the judge who is basically saying that Trump is a bad guy. So go ahead and do a Control F and look up bad guy, Dawson.
By the way, thank you, YZ1. You guys are excellent. Your show is first-rate commentary and analysis with a Minnesota flavor. No, it's not, because we're not nice.
Yeah.
I grew up mostly in Wisconsin. I was born in St. Paul, came back here as an adult, and you grew up mostly in Idaho. That's maybe why we don't do the Minnesota nice thing around here. But thank you. I do love Minnesota, so maybe we do have a little bit of a flavor. She says she's been touting us to friends whenever relevant. I don't know why I assumed your gender, YZ1. Why did I assume YZ1 was a female? Maybe I'm wrong on that. I assume genders. William's not here to correct me on that one. Tucker said Minnesota mean.
Yeah, right.
By the way, I was a Twins fan since as young as I can remember. Remembering them back in the World Series. I almost could care less right now that they broke the streak in playoffs. They're such a woke organization that just kind of I've lost it for them. I feel nothing. Right? And I don't even think the Yankees stand in their way to get into the World Series, which was always our kryptonite. Sorry.
Yep. And
Going
so
off a tangent there.
basically in this article here, he what's being made out is that what one of Trump's attorneys was saying was that Trump was being discriminated against because of his political views, which is 100% obvious. It's exactly what's going on. So the judge asked, what is he being discriminated for? The attorney replied, his political speech. If he was not sitting as a Republican, was not the former president who might run again, this would not be happening. So she is discriminating against him for that. The judge and his clerk pointed out that protected classes include race, religion, and sex. Quote, Donald Trump doesn't fit that model, and Gorin flatly declared. He's not being discriminated against based on race, is he, or religion, is he? He's not a protected class, the judge said. If Ms. James has a thing against him, okay, that's not in my understanding of unlawful discrimination. He's just a bad guy she should go after as the chief law enforcement officer of the state. So that's what this judge is saying. The one who is supposed to view this entire case impartially. He's the one saying that, if Letitia James has something against him, if she is specifically targeting him, well, that doesn't count as discrimination. And it shouldn't count as discrimination because he's a bad guy who should be gone after. It's just obvious the cake is baked on this one. It's obvious it's a scam. And, this judge is totally out to get Trump.
And I was watching commentary by Alan Dershowitz. Didn't I send that to you?
Maybe. I'm not sure if I saw that.
Well, Alan Dershowitz, who's not a Trump supporter, although he was on his first impeachment team. Was it the first one, I guess? But Dershowitz even said on this media hit that he's not going to vote for Donald Trump. But that's the wrong thing to do, is to target him because he's a political person. That is not what you do. It's a bad precedent. I don't think the Democrats care.
Right.
We're really tough on
and
Republicans.
Alan Dershowitz voted for Hillary Clinton. Alan Dershowitz voted for Joe Biden.
He's a lefty. He's a Harvard law professor. He's not a right-leaning guy.
Yeah.
we're tough on Republicans on the show a lot for good reasons, although there's good Republicans out there, so we want to highlight that. And when you look at like the economic collapse and stuff like that, that is a bipartisan problem. A lot of these things are bipartisan. The one thing I don't think is bipartisan here is what the Democrats are doing politically. I don't see, I guess the Republicans in the state of Minnesota have done that against us, right?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Those asshats in the Minnesota Senate Victory Fund filing erroneous complaints against us with a campaign finance board. So I guess there are Republicans guilty of it, but the Democrats, hands down, far worse on this thing, to the point where they're corrupting the FBI and going after the leading presidential candidate. Presidential candidate. He's leading in a Washington Post ABC News poll by 10 points. Holy crap, 10 points. The Democrats are freaking out.
Yeah.
Napkin Nader says Allen visited Epstein Island, but he denies it. Yes, That's what you do when you're a lawyer, deny it. But yeah, it seems like
there's an interesting interview. Kim Iverson interviewed him and brought that up, and he was not ready for it, and he was pissed. So I mean, Alan Dershowitz, he's a interesting legal person to take some legal advice from, but his personal life, he's probably a sketchy, creepy dude.
Right.
But that doesn't deny the fact that he's a wicked smart person.
I actually have an opinion of the Trump thing that you were just talking about. It's like Trump is the leading candidate of the presidential whatever.
Everyone has to
now.
admit that at this point.
The primary and general.
Yeah, Republican. Yeah, the Republican by a lot, but Real Clear Politics has them by plus 1.5 points now.
Mm.
And by the way, that's also that's just basically popular vote polling. So state by state, the Electoral College, which is how he gets elected, is probably far more than that.
Mm-hmm. So he might be the leading presidential candidate, but I do think that shouldn't save anybody from being like needing to go to court and having stuff done on that end. The only problem is I don't think that any court exists right now where it would be a fair trial, no matter what, especially when it comes to politics, because political system in the U.S. right now is political, which sucks. If I had it my way, it'd just be completely blind. But
and if you think about the gag order on him, he's a presidential candidate, the leading presidential candidate, and you're trying to silence the speech of a presidential candidate. So everyone in the press can say he's on trial, he's guilty, look at this thing, look what the judge said. And then Trump is prohibited, he's gagged from giving his response.
Well, is he gagged from talking in general, or
he's
is he
gagged at
from...
least at this point, talking about the clerk of courts and what else? There's two things.
Something to do with his businesses, I think. Something to do with the business filings, but that's the thing. I really don't think Trump's even going to follow through on these gag orders.
So is he testing them?
And then they'll say contempt of court and all kinds of other things. So it's just going to be one thing after another. And I kind of agree philosophically with what Dawson's saying, that nobody's above the law. If somebody has charges against them, they have to show up in court. But the problem with this one is it's all a scam. It's all a BS. It's all such a witch hunt. It's all designed for this purpose. And, it doesn't make any sense to me why, we would allow this kind of thing to go on in our country. And, Dawson's right that, these judges should be unbiased. And, but it's impossible to do that when you have when you have someone like Donald Trump as the defendant, because a judge, you're usually not supposed to know who the person is, who the defendant or who the, plaintiffs are in a case. They're supposed to be viewing it impartially, without any bias, without any knowledge of the other situations or other people, what's going on. Since that judge isn't doing that, and since he isn't recusing himself like he should, it's just going to be a designed result. And the American people in this case are kind of the jury. The American people are saying that, even with all of these indictments and everything, they're still with Trump. So the American people are the jury. Joe Biden and these Democrats are losing to a guy who they're trying to throw in prison. What does that say about the Democrats? It shows how pathetic they really are. But, I also want to play this video, line 12, Dawson. This is the judge smiling in the courtroom, which shows that, usually cameras aren't even allowed in the courtroom, but this guy's doing a photo op. He loves the moment. He loves the spotlight. He wants to get Trump. He wants to be responsible for it. He's doing the bidding of the deep state, and you can see how excited he is within this video here.
I'm sorry, I've interrupted you so many times, but I think we're seeing something that we frankly did not expect. There's a camera in that
You turn it up big time.
was that supposed to be, or would they just be simply ushered out when we're gavelled to order?
Well, you're more likely to have cameras in state proceedings, and so it's up to the discretion of the judge. And quite frankly, I'm not too sure that both parties would want it. I think that
There's
Trump
Letitia
uses
James.
the optics
Trump
of
calls her
this to
Peekaboo
his
James.
advantage. Look, people looking at this live picture right now will be either filled with rage or they will be thrilled, and that's the problem. Is that you have James.
Here's the judge.
Shown in the background. You've got Trump in the foreground.
Oh my! It just looks like a joke.
Yeah.
On both sides. Trump is likely right.
All right, that's good.
It's
I mean,
just
that
it's,
judge
it's
is trying to look like
joke.
he's
It's
on a
literal
sitcom or
joke.
something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's sitting there posing, he's smiling, and oh, look at me, I'm just here. It's like that guy's got no professionalism. That guy is acting like a complete doofus for himself. This is the most important moment of his life, and that's how he's acting. That's the way that he's presenting himself. That's the way that he's making sure that we, the people, know that he's impartial. I mean, give me a break. This guy's a joke. For him to be smiling and having a good time there, that shows that he's in this to try to get Trump. And also, I got another video from this judge, line 14, where this judge has said that he has the authority to overturn what juries say. He's saying that he wants to use his own personal emotions to be able to decide cases, and he even says that word for word that his emotions play in as a factor to this thing. So this is also a newly discovered video that people have been circulating. So let's play that.
Controversial, even though I'm being taped. Juries get it wrong
Turn it up a
a
little bit,
lot.
doesn't?
That's my own opinion. I do only civil trials, personal injury cases, contract disputes. But I've had situations where, like, oh my heaven's sake, how could they have thought that? Well, I have a tool that I can deal with that. It's called jury notwithstanding the verdict, judgment notwithstanding the verdict. I can say there is no possible way that a reasonable jury would have reached that conclusion. And all right, am I following the law or am I making law? Okay, I'm following law. I'm an impartial referee, but it's hard to factor out my own emotions. And I have tools. Somebody can say, well, Your Honor, you have to throw out this case because it's just like another case. Well, is it just like another case? What if the defendant was wearing a red sweater instead of a blue sweater? Oh, and by
What
the
a
way,
joke.
I worked for the Columbia Daily Spectator for a couple of weeks. What happened was I went there every day and I wrote a few stories. One I got criticized on because I wrote that some Ku Klux Klanners had murdered some people, and I was told, you can't say that. How do we know? You weren't there. Well, that was what everybody thought. But anyway, yeah, we should have absolute immunity. What if we defame somebody? That's how it usually comes up. You call somebody a murderer or a heroin addict, that sort of thing, a pedophile. And if it's done in court, yeah, I think we should have absolute immunity.
Monica H.R. Huron says that judge needs that smile wiped off his face.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting words. Don't mess with Monica. COVIDian lockdown, or Ostrom will see to it that Biden wins. That's that's interesting to see if we have COVID 2.0. Sorry, I wanted to bring those up because I think they're first to the comment section. I don't think I've read them before, so I wanted to make sure I got that on air. But that's an interesting video.
Yeah,
Once again.
for him to be saying, is this case exactly the same? Well, what if they're wearing a blue sweater instead of a red sweater? I mean, he said that he
only goes after the red sweater. You get what I did there?
Right,
See?
exactly. But that's the thing. He's saying, that his emotions play into his decisions. He's saying that his emotion gets to dictate things. He was basically saying that, am I following the law or am I making the law? He said, well, I'm following it, but also I'm making the law.
Yeah.
He's admitting what he's doing. He's acting as a judge is not supposed to do. A judge is not supposed to be a proactive person who is supposed to, be creating laws and everything. That's why everybody got so upset about Obamacare, because Obamacare was found to be unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court. Then what did they do? They decided to tweak it. Who gave the responsibility to the court? The court doesn't have that responsibility or authority. That belongs to the legislature, just like in the state of New York. the laws are made by the legislature, enforced by the judicial branch. So this judge has absolutely no authority, no right to be enforcing his own viewpoints, his own ideology, and his own motives into a case, and he shouldn't be making the law, and really he should just still be interpreting the law.
But he lives in a deep blue state, New York, and I don't think anything's going to be done about it. That's the problem. And I can't understand why a patriotic American would want to go live in a place like that. Now, here's the deal. And it scares the shit out of me. Like, there's a couple places. I was just bringing this up to you before. Would you visit Washington, D.C. right now? It's questionable.
Right.
I certainly wouldn't attend a protest in Washington, D.C. because you could only imagine what would happen finding some guy like me, very publicly a conservative leader, and then they would want to target me for some kind of prosecution if, like, a riot or something happened, right? So no freaking way would I go there. In New York, how could you live in New York right now? You know, it's hard enough for us to stay in Minnesota. A lot of us stay in Minnesota because, you know, like in our case, family and friends, it's close bonds. Plus, the state is savable still. It's hard to see that. A place like New York, it's bad. It's very bad. Let's go to the next section. So those are the three pillars: economic stability, security stability, and then what we have is political stability. And this is just massive interference of elections. Trump also saying in those press conferences after the court case, I should be in Iowa, I should be in New Hampshire right now, but I'm not because of this. And then the media's like, oh, but you could. Why did you show up? It's like, because he's got to be there. He's got to make a statement. But it's like, it doesn't matter if he's there or not. He's still dealing with the bullshit. It's interfering with his schedule.
Yeah, and I think, what Tucker says here in the comments, his chief clerk is also pals with Schumer. Is that the person who Trump was saying Schumer's girlfriend?
Yeah, that's what got him the gag, I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. And yeah, no, it's hilarious. Trump just puts things out there, Same thing with that Atlanta Fannie Willis, he was saying that she was sleeping with gang members, know. I have yet to see the evidence for that, but I mean, like, he wouldn't make a claim like that without there being something,
Well,
she's
I
obviously
think we know
connected
the something,
in some ways.
but the sleeping part was kind of sketchy.
Right, you never know though. It sounds like he's got some. It sounds like he's got some intel. He must be getting the inside scoop somewhere.
Okay, let's go to another section here of the show. This is something you won't hear from anywhere else. Okay, you saw the speaker. What do we call this? The vacating speaker thing go down, right? Beautiful thing. Matt Gaetz led this charge. Good for him, right? We should feel so bad for McCarthy because he's such a hero. He was saving the country. No, he's a Washington insider. Bye-bye, Kevin McCarthy. But the Republican establishment has got their talking points, and you probably have heard it from some people because, in all honesty, this wasn't like all conservatives united over this thing. Clearly, right? Clearly they didn't unite. Now, what's fascinating is you turn on Fox News and you probably hear how bad this is, but you go to alternative media and a lot of us are saying, hey, this was a good thing. Okay. That's why there's a future for alternative media. But I want to talk about the 5 top talking points. We'll call it the Newt Gingrich, the Fox News talking points on why this is so bad. So the first one, and this one's hilarious, and I'm sure you've heard this one. Republicans are always infighting. Democrats always get along. We're always doing this to each other. I love that one. They hear that one all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so just this morning. So first of all, that's so bullshit. Democrats infight too. People think it's always Republicans that publicly infight. First of all, when it's U.S. Congress, wouldn't you rather the infighting happens on the floor of Congress than in a private closed-door meeting, right? Because we're always told, well, that was a decision of the conference. It's like, are we against that? It's not transparent.
Yeah.
So the infighting should be on the House floor. Guess what the Democrats do? They actually are the behind the closed door kind of people. So is the establishment, but the Democrats are really good at that. So that's bullshit. But they don't say only Republicans infight. Still, how do you say it with a straight face?
And also, there's a lot of patriots trying to take the Republican Party back from the rhinos. So infighting is a good thing because it means that there is a fight happening to retake the GOP from these rhinos, and that's a good thing in my mind. I don't see infighting as a bad thing. And you're right that the Democrats do it just as much, but they keep theirs a lot more quiet. They do it behind the scenes, and they're not transparent. A lot of these rhinos aren't transparent because you're right. They go to these caucus meetings. They do it all behind closed doors. We, the people, never get to know anything about it, and these Democrats all just spout out whatever talking points that were given. They pretend like they don't think for themselves. They go into these caucus meetings. That's where all the real decisions are made.
Okay, well says, we infight, but we're in a cult. I thought that wasn't allowed in a cult. That's a great point. Oh,
Yeah.
they're just a bunch of cultists,
Right.
separatists, occultists. Wait a
Mhm.
second. You're not supposed to argue, right?
Yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, really, when you tackle these Republican establishment talking points, they're really easy to dismantle. But on just the surface, they sound good. They're really well crafted. All right, so just this morning, okay? Like, we don't even have to go long term to figure out where the Democrats are infighting. It happened this morning right there to office in Minnesota on line 15F, F15. Dawson, pull up this tweet. This is from the former majority leader in the Democrat Party here in Minnesota, Ryan Winkler. And he's opining on just a failed Hennepin County prosecutor. My God, Mary Moriarty, is that how you say her name?
Moriarty.
He writes,
Winkler ran
intervenes to
against Moriarty.
Right. Intervenes to save a child molester from prison over the objection of her own professional prosecutor. This Hennepin County attorney is making all of our children less safe. She shouldn't even serve a full term. That sounds pretty harsh for one Democrat to say to another Democrat. And we're not talking about some obscure Democrat. We're talking about the former House Majority Leader, Ryan Winkler, going after the Hennepin County attorney. Like, of all the highest, other than the Attorney General in Minnesota, the highest attorney prosecutor you could possibly pursue politically, it's the Hennepin County. It's the biggest county by numbers, but right, not by land, obviously.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's infighting. I mean, we don't have to look that far.
And
Dean
Moriarty
Phillips
was also, same thing with Keith Ellison. They had some infighting there.
There
too
you go.
between
Keith
them.
Ellison infighting with her, but Dean Phillips, he's literally saying we don't need Joe Biden as president. Right? You got a lot of people getting in line. Tim Walz, Amy Klobuchar, all them. But Dean Phillips literally is like, hey, we shouldn't do that. So guess what? This is the other news we learned today. Dean Phillips has probably got a primary challenger. Did you see that? Where was that story? I'm not going to open that up. But there's Dean Phillips potentially has got a primary challenger coming. Okay? So there you go. 2 in one day. It's only the Republicans infighting. Bullshit. Not true at all. Okay? And maybe it sounds louder because you're on that side. You're more sensitive to it. And maybe it's because Republicans infight a little bit more publicly, but that's a good thing because it means it's more transparent. Aren't you sick of being left in the dark? Okay, number 2. Oh, man, this is my favorite one. This is my favorite one. We need to be united. We got to unify as Republicans. That's hilarious. Okay, can you grant me that there's 2 ends of the spectrum in the Republican Party? You got the Willard Romneys over here. Mitt Romney, they call him. Willard Romney's real name. And you got, let's just call it the Matt Gaetz side, okay? There's 2 opposite ends. And Willard Romney is going to say, I'm really a Democrat, but I'm a Republican because I run in Utah, right? So I'm going to advocate for more government. I'm going to advocate for endless Ukrainian spending, right? And you got the Matt Gaetzes over here going, we got to stop doing that. We got to not fund Ukraine. We got to balance our budget, right? So how do you unify this thing? Well, guess what? When the Republican establishment says unity, they are never talking about unity over here. They're always talking about the Willard Romney side. It's always how it works. So you want to unite? Sure, let's unite. But it's going to be over here on conservative values. Because in the end of the day, if you don't have principles you're standing on, what the hell is this all about? So yes, let's unite on the principles. And the whole speaker battle was because somebody didn't live up to those principles, him being Kevin McCarthy.
And
So
you're right. I mean, that's how they want to unify. Of course, they want our votes. they want to drag us along. They want to win elections. There's no doubt about it. Rhinos definitely want to win elections. They want power. They want they want that kind of control. But they want us to go along with it. Like a guy like Tom Emmer, they want us to come to, the Tom Emmer way of thinking about things. Otherwise, we're useless to them, but they want our votes. They never want to move towards our direction. And, I'm all for unity. If it means that they're coming towards us, I'm not going towards them.
You hit on the most important point. You guys have power at home because they need our votes. Right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's the power.
That's the power in the end.
That's why, I think nobody should just, vote red no matter who. Nobody should just vote red until we're dead. There's a major problem with that because unless you're willing to exert your power to withhold your vote, like Matt Gaetz did on Kevin McCarthy, you have to be willing to withhold your vote in order for them to come to you. So The only way that we'll ever get these rhinos to try to come our way is if we tell them we won't vote for them unless they come our way.
And you know what other votes they need? They need those 8 Republicans in
Yeah.
order to become Speaker of the House.
Right.
Which leads us to the next one. This talking point's interesting. You don't have a guy, Matt Gaetz. Who's your guy? Who's your replacement? That's what all the media is asking. Who's your replacement?
Mhm.
You don't have someone that can get 218 votes. I
Yep.
laugh. It's like McCarthy doesn't have 218 votes. What's
Mhm.
your point? It's like, why do you just bake in the cake that McCarthy has 218 votes? He clearly doesn't. He's not the
Mhm.
Speaker of the House anymore.
Yep.
So now you got to struggle and go find the next leader. And what's really interesting about Washington, D.C. is politics comes and goes real quick. And it's really interesting when you see like the Tim Pelini's running in 2018 and they don't realize the shift in politics, right? So they're running an election from like a decade ago. Politics is so quick sometimes, like a day, things get old. And within 24 hours after McCarthy loses the gavel, you got Jim Jordan entering the race, and you got Steve Scalise entering the race. So let's pull up this NBC News on line F17.
Yep.
These are the people that Jesse put in there that are running to be the successor.
Yeah, so these are a list of potential people and some people who have already announced. So, yeah, as you said, Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan are both already announced in this thing. They also list out Tom Emmer. But from what I'm seeing about Tom Emmer, it sounds like Tom Emmer is lining up behind Steve Scalise, and Tom Emmer is going to be running for majority leader of the caucus. That's also going to be an interesting battle because as of now, it sounds like it's going to be Tom Emmer versus Elise Stefanik. Maybe there's going to be another person who gets, involved in that race as well. But the majority leader is also up for grabs.
And that's going to be a simple majority in the Republican caucus too, right?
Right,
So-
yep. And then, unless they decide, yeah, exactly. It goes on within the caucus.
So we don't see that vote. It happens in the conference,
Yep.
not caucus, conference, and the
Mhm.
federal. They call them caucuses in the
Right.
state of Minnesota. So
And go ahead and keep scrolling down there, Dawson. Yep, so that lists out a couple of other people there, too. So you can see the Financial Services Chair, Patrick McHenry, McHenry, he looks a little too much like David Hand for me to trust him. But I'll tell you, he did the right thing on day one by telling Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer to pack the hell up and get out of the office, because we should have never had, Pelosi and Steny Hoyer getting these hideaway offices because of Kevin McCarthy. I can't believe that we didn't find out about this until Kevin McCarthy was gone. But yeah, Kevin McCarthy allowed Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer to keep their offices, to get these secret hideaway ones that never should have been in their hands. And Pelosi lied to McCarthy. McCarthy said in his press conference after he was ousted, he gave a press conference where he said that if Nancy Pelosi was talking to him, they were discussing problems. He said they want the motion to vacate. Nancy told him, if they ever bring that up, I'll have your back. We'll make sure you're taken care of. Well, Nancy Pelosi wasn't there for Dianne Feinstein's funeral. She was in California, so she's got a tiny out. But really, we all know Pelosi could have whipped those votes. She could have put them back in. But there's all kinds of other people.
I don't know. I don't know if my assessment's the same as you on that one.
You think Pelosi can't whip votes?
I don't
She's
know.
got more
That's
power
a
than
tough one to
even,
ask Democrats. Vote for. Well, I guess they could have voted president.
Well,
they could have just done
I've heard some leftists say that if the squad was legitimately trying to hold the Democratic Party accountable, they could have bartered their votes with Kevin McCarthy in order to get a Medicare for all floor vote.
Yeah,
because
squad
that's
is
what
so
a lot of the
stupid.
progressives want. They want to see who's who on that issue, which it would be interesting, and I'm sure Kevin McCarthy maybe even would have done it.
Okay,
just
so
because it's going to expose some of the Democrats.
to wrap up this point, you don't have a guy. You need someone with 218 votes. It takes less than 24 hours. Names are already popping up.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump's being offered up.
Right. Yeah. So also Kevin Hearn. Yeah, Kevin
Hearn would be good too, right?
And,
Oklahoma.
Kevin Hearn is telling people that he's interested in running. It sounds like he's going to run. But Byron Donalds is also in the mix. Some people are mentioning him. Rhino Dusty Johnson, who's in the Main Street Caucus, which is basically the Uniparty. Jody Arrington, Mike Johnson, Tom Cole, Garrett Graves, and let's see, Don Bacon and Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin is one of the people who's not even in Congress, but he's apparently being floated as a potential candidate for Speaker. I think he would be an interesting choice. Out of the options between Steve Scalise, Jim Jordan, and Kevin Hearn, I'd be pretty open-minded to Kevin Hearn and Jim Jordan as long as the same terms apply. But there's one more candidate in the race that's even better than all of them. That's President Donald J. Trump.
Let's circle back to Trump after the segment here, because that's a loaded one.
Yeah.
That's a very loaded one.
Right.
Just the people that hated Matt Gaetz' move, but the conservatives, I think that was it. No, I guess Brad was saying something different. But the conservatives that don't see this for what it's worth, that maybe don't like what Matt Gaetz did, just think about this. If Jim Jordan becomes the next speaker, you probably really like Jim Jordan. I don't know how much of that's deserved, to be honest with you. I think he's kind of like a hero because of the hearings. Has he really been that much of a fighter in Congress? I don't know. But I think most conservatives have a positive opinion of Jim Jordan.
Yeah.
So Matt Gaetz might literally be what gave us Speaker Jim Jordan. Would he not go down then as maybe a good move, like a hero, right? So there you go. You don't have a guy.
Jim Jordan was, at odds with Kevin McCarthy towards the beginning of the leadership because Jim Jordan was running against him. Jim Jordan was trying to do his own thing. Kevin McCarthy was smart enough to try to realize he had to have Jim Jordan on his side.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he was doing. Maybe we could use the word co-opting, but I would think it's more just becoming
Jim Jordan's
his friend.
playing the long game.
Yeah, I think so too.
I got it. So anyhow, those are the 3 talking points. Only Republicans in fight. We need to be unified. You don't have a guy. They need someone with 218 votes. Here's number 4 talking point. Now is not the time. We are only 13 months away from the most important election of our lifetime. That is like one of the best political excuses.
Now is never the time for them.
That is the dumbest thing ever. To think that this is going to at all weigh into people's decisions come election time is the dumbest thing I've literally ever heard. Guys, I left the studio. I'm all happy. I'm like, I can't believe this went down. I'm so happy this went down. I get outside of the studio, and I go down the street, and I realize no one knows. No one cares. You guys do. You pay attention to our show. The political ends. Yeah, Dawson, if you weren't running the dials, you wouldn't know. No one cares about this. You know what? If no one cares about the day it happens, and it's a historic vote, it's never happened before, they're certainly not going to remember us 13 months down the road. They're certainly not going to vote for this when they're seeing record inflation, precipice of World War III, you name the big issue, border crossings. This is not going to affect the election in 13 months. That is the dumbest talking point. Don't ever fall for that. And then number 5, this is a sad day for America. Democrats are laughing, and they act like it's a big win for Democrats. It's not a big win for Democrats. Same point. It's a one-day basically down. Oh, look how chaotic the Republicans are. Democrats knew their talking points. They go, well, we got to hope the Republicans aren't beholden to these MAGA extremists, meaning Matt Gaetz is a MAGA extremist who just toppled the speaker. That's their talking point, right? This isn't a big win for the Democrats. In fact, using that talking point, it just shows why McCarthy needed to go, right? That would have been the argument for them to help out McCarthy because they might fear there's a worse or more conservative speaker.
Right, exactly. And, it also showed to me that the Democrats don't think for themselves. They all voted in unison. And also, let's think about what the speaker election was like before all 15 rounds. Every single Democrat lined up and voted Hakeem Jeffries every single time. It shows that they're not real players. It shows that they're all going to be unified and force a Democrat agenda no matter what. They're almost all extremists. Almost every single one of them falls in line on every important bill, on every single thing that would be either America first. They're against it. That's how a lot of these Democrats are. They don't think for themselves. And, this, like I said with the squad, they could have had a real opportunity to play some games in that moment. They could have said, let's force a Medicare for all vote. But, they're not serious about holding the Democrat Party accountable. It's very obvious that, that's what AOC, Ilhan, and Cori Bush and some of these others said that they were going to do when they got in there. But what are they really? They're just the progressive lapdogs for the Democratic Party. So the Democrats, they still own them. They're still on the leash. And they're just not going to play this game in any kind of real way. The Democrats only did this. They all voted in unison with Matt Gaetz and the other conservatives. They only did that because they thought, okay, this is good for our message. We can say, look, the Republicans are in disarray. But like we said, the unifying, the infighting, that's all a good thing in our mind because we see it as our one opportunity to try to take this country back. We get, not even a branch of government. We have one half of one branch. So we need to take full advantage of it and put everything we can into the House.
I want to add a 6th talking point because I've heard this one. This one's crazy. It's you were wrong when you were voting with all Democrats. I actually literally got someone that emailed me that.
Yeah.
You know they're wrong because they voted with all the Democrats. And that's the talking point I've heard. I think McCarthy. Apparently 8 Republicans can vote with all the Democrats to split. And I'm just thinking, yeah, voting with all the Democrats is bad. Like when all the Republicans that voted with all the Democrats for the continuing resolution McCarthy did to fund their government for another 45 days, right? That's bad too.
Yep.
Because you guys vote with the Democrats
much worse.
all the time. Did you know that I don't think there was a single Democrat that voted agated the continuing resolution?
There was
in the
one.
Senate?
Maybe not in the
It was
Senate.
88
that's
votes in the
interesting.
Senate. I think there was 1 in the House.
Yeah, and the only reason the one in the House voted no was because he said it didn't fund Ukraine.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
So it wasn't even like a good principled vote for anything. It was basically just, it's not funding the military-industrial complex. It's not trying to provoke a war with Russia, World War III. So, even the one Democrat who voted the correct way, it was for all the wrong reasons.
All right, so let's talk about Trump, and then before we sign off, I want to just give an update in the Maddie Kingsbury case. Adam Fravel charged with first-degree murder. Give a perspective on that. So Trump not going to that story yet. Trump being nominated, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene's like, that's my guy. I'm only going to vote for him.
That's right.
I'm a Donald J. Trump. Okay.
That's what she's saying. She's saying that the only person who has her vote right now for
Only
Speaker
one.
of the House is Donald J. Trump. And there's another representative, Troy Niels, and let's see, he's out of Texas. He's also saying, he's a former police officer. He's also saying that Trump is his guy. So we got at least 2 representatives right now who, this is going to be another few rounds of voting at least.
Okay, well, hold on.
This is going to go on for a little while, I
Well,
hope.
we don't know because maybe the conference does actually come unified on something, right? Jim Jordan might be the unifying candidate.
Maybe.
So let me ask you this. Okay, so Trump's on the outside right now. So if he becomes speaker, and even if it's temporary, because I think he's still going to run for president, right?
Oh,
He's
yeah.
running for president. He's leading as president, so he doesn't want to just be speaker. So maybe he would just do it temporarily. But he's now on the inside. So he's on the outside. He can blame everything on the politicians in D.C., but if he becomes Speaker of the House, now he is actually part of the problem that he's doing. Now, I guess he could still say we only have the House, and it's the Joe Biden administration, and that's how he's positioning himself. So I do see that. But I got this question for you. They say McCarthy couldn't get 218 votes. Can Donald Trump get 218 votes?
Yeah, I mean,
is there 6 Republicans, some rhinos that would not do it?
Oh yeah, I mean, watch Thomas Massey do it. Watch Chip Roy and some of these others, and then there's the absolute complete rhinos like Mike Simpson and all these others that are never ever going to vote for Trump. They'd rather vote for Hakeem Jeffries than Donald Trump for Speaker of the House. So this is just going to be a good test. I don't think Trump has any chance of being the speaker, but it's a good test to basically see who's really going to stand with Trump, because it was only Gates last time. Gates also nominated Trump in the last speaker race, but this time, with no Kevin, that means Marjorie Taylor Greene's got her vote open, and I think we're going to see a few of these people who.
But I think all that gets. See, I don't think we get to see it. I think all that gets done behind the scenes in the conference, and they're going to come out of that conference probably unified behind Scalise or Jordan. I would think it's one of those 2 people. But yeah, Carla Nelson, Trump would use the power of the purse to protect our border, which apparently Biden's already funding. Yeah,
and this is going to be tough too, because the majority of the members of the conference, of the Republican conference in the U.S. House, are rhinos. I'm looking at let's see what this was, 2019, when Jim Jordan challenged Kevin McCarthy to be the minority leader. Kevin McCarthy won 159 to 43. So there were only 43 people within the Republican House that were willing to choose Jim Jordan back then over Kevin McCarthy. But things are a little bit more different. I think the House is more conservative than it was before, and I think that since it's more conservative, there's going to be more people willing to vote for Jim Jordan. And now the choice is going to be Steve Scalise, who he has cancer. I'm not sure why he is choosing to run at this moment. It sounds like he's got enough to deal with. He's the majority leader on top of it. But also, let's see, when Andy Biggs ran against Kevin McCarthy in January, before the floor votes even took place, McCarthy won 188 to 31. So this is going to be one of those things that I think that they're probably going to try to consolidate around Steve Scalise. Scalise is going to be the establishment choice in this race. If they can do that or not is going to be up to see. Matt Gaetz is even open to Steve Scalise, but if we don't get the same terms of agreement as we had with Kevin McCarthy, and if they're not actually going to be followed through, then we shouldn't choose Scalise. But if I had to just put a prediction out there right now, I do think that Scalise is the one who the establishment is ready to rally behind.
Yeah, but would they be fine with Jim Jordan? That's the big question.
I would hope so. And, they may be more willing to after everything that Jim Jordan has done to try to protect McCarthy. And, with the majority leader, between Emmer and Stefanik, that's also going to be interesting. And, if Emmer ends up becoming the majority leader, or even if he doesn't, that would open up the majority whip position. And Guy Reschenthaler of Pennsylvania, he's a U.S. representative out of Pennsylvania. He endorsed Trump in 2024. And I still got to do more research and get more info on this guy, but he's announced that he is willing to run for majority whip. So that would be an upgrade over Emmer. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to this last story here. This is charges been upgraded against Adam Fravel. Adam Fravel is the boyfriend and the father of the two children of Maddie Kingsbury, who went missing. I think it was March 31st. I always get the date wrong. End of March, we had Maddie's aunt and uncle on the show. It's kind of touched our network individually. In fact, they had a big search party. I think a lot of you guys probably watched that episode. We did this way back in April. So her body was found 2 months later. Obviously ruled homicide. As soon as it was ruled homicide, or I think as soon as the body was uncovered or was found, Adam Fravel was arrested. His initial charges were second-degree murder. And a lot of us are like, geez, he could actually get out in life because he's probably in his late 20s, right? It's a 40-year sentence. Just this week, it got upgraded to first-degree murder charges. There's actually two charges. One is first-degree murder. The other one is first-degree murder. Let me make sure I get this right, because it says first-degree murder while committing domestic abuse. So we've got the indictment. You can go to actionforliberty.com and see the indictment. Oh, it actually has his birthday here, 1994. What does that mean? He's almost 30, so 29 years old. And so two additional charges. What ended up happening, if you just scroll there through this indictment, they interviewed 31 witnesses. This went in front of a grand jury. So this just came out earlier this week. Grand jury on October 2nd signed this, two new charges. So we watched the Zoom hearing, which occurred, I think it was on Tuesday? Well, yeah, it was Tuesday, yep. And basically the big story that came out of that was the bail terms got up by $1 million. So unconditional bail is $3 million now instead of $2 million, and then conditional bail is $2 million instead of $1 million. Kind of irrelevant because he didn't have the funds to post bail, so he's going to serve time in jail until the trial. I think the bigger story is the paperwork, everything that came from the grand jury needs to be reviewed by the defense, and because of how long it is, they're not going to get it till I think December. So there's going to be a tentative hearing December. We're looking at a trial probably not until next spring. But we want to be on top of the story, so we're going to bring you updates when this happens. Just tragic. We want to get justice for Maddie, for her family, two beautiful little children who are now being watched by her father and his wife. But it looks like we're probably over 6 months out from when this trial will occur. But I think things keep going the way they are, we'll probably be we'll have somebody attending that trial and giving you guys updates, because this, we're a political news outlet. We're not a crime outlet, but I think this is such an interesting story. It's hit our network, and I just feel like this is a good one to cover. We don't get I don't like the way the mainstream media usually covers these stories. Okay, so I think we can give a unique perspective. So we'll stay on top of the story for you. One other story, as I was perusing Action for Liberty, that I think is really fascinating. If you just go back to the homepage, Dawson, and pull this up, Governor Walz' mansion is being renovated. I think we knew this. It was a $9 million renovation. Well, because they are very bad at counting money and projects, it's now another $3 million. More importantly, this house on Summit, it's got a market value between $3 and $4 million. So it's almost threefold the cost of renovation than the actual market price of the home. Now, I'm just a fiscal conservative. I'm sick and tired of giving these politicians.
We're not undervaluing it, right? We're not pulling a Letitia James,
we're not pulling
right?
Letitia.
I would think that maybe a governor's mansion could go a little more than that.
Well, I had an assessor reach out to me and kind of give me his or her perspective. So maybe it could be valued up to about $5 million or so.
Sure.
Either way, but what the assessor also said, it's not uncommon because of the like how old these homes are for the restoration to cost that much money. But the point that's trying to be made, and if you scroll down, there's the Zillow estimate. Zillow's an estimate, right? And we all know that. But you can actually see some of the nearby homes, what they've sold for, like $2.1 million right next door to it. So is it 4 times that value? It's certainly not worth $18 million. It's certainly not worth what Mar-a-Lago's worth, which is probably $400 million. Maybe $1.5 billion. Why am I lowballing it? Trump probably knows better than I do, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
But anyhow, the point I'm trying to make is we wine and dine and grace these politicians with these luxurious things like this. And it's like, screw these guys. Like, they don't even care. This cost has already gone over by $3 million in a short period of time. They started the renovation in June, right? All so that they can just wine and dine lobbyists and special interests, because that's the whole point of the governor's mansion. It's a little bit of residence. Well, actually, it's a lot of bit of residence because Governor Walz doesn't own property anymore. He sold his home. So he is completely dependent on the government right now for housing. And right now, when it's being renovated, he's costing us $4,400 a month so he could live in the ex-president's mansion on the U of M campus. So there you go. So we're going to renovate this mansion so that they can have more parties for their crony insiders. Have him move into the James J. Hill house down the street. The tyrant. It is empty after all. Yeah, but I thought the James Hill house was like a museum or a historical thing or something like that.
Yeah, like in Idaho, there's a historical governor's mansion, but yeah, the governor doesn't get a mansion anymore, which I think is the right way of doing it. The governor's got enough money to rent a house or something, but where does Walz live? He's not even too far from the cities originally, so.
Brad says the tax value on the property is $4.8 million. What's the tax value? Like, who's paying that tax, right?
Yeah.
Beth says, I don't watch the news. Would much rather hear from the trial from you guys. Well, that's a great point. I don't watch 6 o'clock news either, so why would we punt to them? Boy, you know what? I don't want to tell them about the thing we got.
Now, wait until we have pictures of it.
Wait.
And it's all done. Yeah.
We got something really exciting, but it's probably months away from us telling you about. So, but that will make it much more interesting. Like, we could do live podcasts from the trial. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay. Anyhow,
and also I maybe have some breaking news.
Yes.
Okay. President Trump is expected to attend the GOP meeting on Tuesday for closed candidate forums for the U.S. House Speaker. So Trump is going to be wheeling and dealing. He's going to be in the Capitol. He's going to be in there negotiating, seeing if he can become the Speaker of the House. If that's true, this is still to be confirmed.
What's the source?
I can't say who it is, but
text. You got a text.
You got a text, yeah. But if that's who it, if that's what it's going to be, I think that would be pretty crazy. I think Trump should, since his name is in contention, since his name is in the hat, he should definitely talk with the Congress and see if some deal can be worked out. I would love to see it.
I'm just seeing if I got an outlet that might.
Yeah, there might be some news that.
NBC News is actually reporting it.
There we go.
Trump considered visiting Capitol next week. Political. Trump considered a trip to Congress before speakership election. Oh man, I'll tell you what. I have no idea what the next year is going to be like in politics, and it's not gonna. There's a lot that's not going to be good. I'll tell you that. But Trump keeps it entertaining. All right. Well, long story short, we ended our show on Tuesday, not knowing when we'll be back. We do Tuesdays and Thursdays. Turns out the speaker thing isn't until Tuesday at least.
Mm-hmm.
So do they conference on Monday? I don't know. So
Well, I think they're conferencing on Tuesday, based on based on what
I
they're
thought
saying
they were
about
gaveling
Trump.
back in on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So in other words, we don't need to have a special show, and so we'll be back on Tuesday right here, 1:00. Thank you for tuning in today. We will see you next Tuesday. Take care.